Welcome, Mark,
Thank
to
you.
this great audience here in Munich. Steffi asked us to go beyond the obvious today. What we want to do is make circularity obvious. And so, quick hands up. Who earns money with circularity today in this audience? Okay, a few. Mark is from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, a leading foundation on circularity, and he will portray you and show you where we stand worldwide on circularity today.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. This event's got a really lovely feel, so I'm looking forward to speaking to lots of you over the course of the day. And let's start really where are we with this idea of a circular economy? From just 15 years ago, it was kind of a raw idea that was coming together from a few different schools of thought. And we fast forward today, it's a compelling, comprehensive concept that's being debated in depth in boardrooms and in parliaments. More than half of the big businesses that we work with have a circular economy strategy or a roadmap or a public target in place. And more than 70 governments around the world have a circular economy roadmap. So the idea is absolutely out there, but when it comes to the implementation of that idea, that's where there's a big gap. The circular economy is not yet happening at scale. And it's not actually that just the pace of the sort of progress is a bit too slow. Actually, some of the big global challenges that the circular economy seeks to address are only getting bigger. It's outpaced by our current progress. So the amount of virgin plastic we're producing for packaging, the amount of waste going into our oceans, the amount of fashion we produce. We've doubled the amount of clothing we produce in just the last 20 years, and we're wearing it for, on average, half as much as time before we're throwing it away. And so we're asking at the foundation, I hope everyone in this room is asking, how do we increase the pace of that progress? And it's not that it isn't happening, because there are many places in today's economy where there's a really strong business case for launching and scaling a circular product or service or operation within your business. If we look at the company level, IKEA has reduced their carbon emissions over the last 2 years by just over 20%, and they've increased their revenues by 30%. And that's through comprehensive new business models, investing in renewable energy. They're really showing that it's possible to decouple their growth from their impact. If we look at something like the tech sector, Back Market was once a small startup and is now a huge business that sells refurbished smartphones. It's swooped into the UK and is now taken over half of the refurbished smartphone market in the UK, and is expanding to many, many other geographies now. And in the world of fashion, Vinted, there's been many ways for us to buy and sell used clothing for many years, but Vinted have made it really easy. And now by sales volume, they are the biggest fashion retailer in France. But we also shouldn't kid ourselves that there's a strong business case anywhere and everywhere today. Businesses are having to be really tactical where they deploy circular business models. And if we asked everyone in this room today, all the businesses, to craft the business cases they'd need to make to invest in launching more circular products or services, and we had a big stack of them, there's probably a small pile where there's a really commercially compelling case today. There's maybe a bigger pile where actually the case is quite unclear. Maybe the return on investment is longer. Maybe the risks are unknown. And then depending on what the industry is, there's probably another big pile where the economics just don't work today, either because you can't scale that alone or because there's not the infrastructure or the enabling conditions to make the economics work. Businesses will do what they're rewarded to do. And it would be foolhardy to expect businesses to drive really hard in areas where there just isn't the economic case to do so. But on the flip side, if we're sort of hedging our bets on the cumulative impact of just where there's those win-wins or sort of moral-based judgments from companies to go further and faster where they just can't do that, then we're going to be waiting a very, very long time for the circular economy. And so that means ultimately we need to design out this tension between profitability and making the circular economy a reality wherever we find it. And policy has a massive role to play there. They can ultimately change, policymakers can change the rules of the game. They can enable those models to really thrive. But businesses don't actually need to wait for policymakers. They don't need to sit idle. They have a really key role in showing what's possible. And that's what this event is really all about. And as I think it was said earlier this morning, our linear model has had 20, 50, 100 years to streamline and find efficiencies, incredibly complex systems that deliver the products and services we all rely on today. And that means that for those working in sustainability or circular economy fields, or those that are supporting businesses to go faster, we've got to get really tactical against that kind of system. We've got to get really smart. And somewhat paradoxically, my provocation for this conversation is that actually if we look into the heart of the linear economy, there's loads of ways in which it makes things affordable, cheap, streamlined, efficient, and highly desirable. And that comes with a big caveat that there's lots of ways that make the economics work in today's economy, which are really extractive, really exploitative, and that's absolutely not the tactics that we want to bring into our new future. But what if we reharnessed all the creativity and innovation and technology that's made our circular economy, linear economy happen, and redeploy those efforts? And I think one of the key things we want to discuss today is the role of collaboration, because actually our linear economy under the surface is full of really in-depth collaboration, often between fierce competitors, that ultimately enable us to create products and services that are seamless and work within our lives.
Absolutely. Co-opetition is a really big business case today. And we see Star Alliances, we see many others like Apple Pay. They joined forces, and this is what we really need to support circularity. What do you think would be the next Star Alliance case for circularity?
So I think often we've heard this morning around we need to accelerate the innovation, create the technology to enable some of these systems to thrive. One of my favorite examples of companies doing that is, it's actually back from the early 2000s. It's an automotive example, and Citroën and Renault and Toyota, they all wanted to enter the small city car market in Europe. And rather than go it alone, they chose to come together and design and ultimately co-manufacture 3 versions of 3 different hatchbacks. And they were built in the same factory, they used the same components, but then they differentiated on the branding, on the after sales, on the service, on the experience they offer to their customers. All while they found ways to de-risk the investment, to find efficiencies, and ultimately make those cars possible in the market today. And so that was for a different means. It was to bring a new product to the market. But imagine if we use that same level of collaboration, intensity of coordination to make the circular economy happen. I think that's where we, for me, that's quite exciting, because often we hear lots about collaboration probably the next few days, and calling for sort of radical, candid collaboration can make the future feel further away, because it's something that might sound new or something that isn't happening today. But actually, I think our current economy is full of examples that should actually bring that future closer.
And we really believe that in terms of circularity, co-opetition could also work within a company, because it's the next revenue stream, and it will not hurt like we heard from IKEA. It's an on-top business. Selling the sofa once makes 600 euros. Refurbishing it, selling an extra cover, taking it back, will make almost the double of income from one sofa. And I think this is the importance that we have to see, that there are different business models out there. Innovation is really here to happen, and I think this is where you are helping, as an Ellen MacArthur Foundation, really build this cooperation. You work with 1,000 companies who really help companies with playbooks, bringing them together and to really making circularity become obvious, become the new norm. And in the linear economy, I come from the fashion and luxury industry, so it's really about making the new attractive. How can we make the circular attractive and the more sustainable? Because I brought these sneakers today, and these sneakers today, they are made of innovative material. So they're perfect now, but they will be waste tomorrow. And waste tomorrow will be what we have to think into our products. Because the principles and everything are here. The principles to make this compostable, to make it, or keep it in the loop, the principles are here. And for us, the important thing is it really the product, or is it us? Us as leaders, you as leaders, when you think about your product, how can you design it, or how will you design it, if your product comes back to you tomorrow? I think this is an important question that we want to give to you, how to design these new circular ways tomorrow, and how to make growth with circularity. And I think Mark has amazing examples like IKEA, but there's Philips. Philips are not only selling light bulbs, they're selling light today. If you go to the Schiphol airport, you will have lamps everywhere, but they're not owned by the airport. So Philips selling light, but not bulbs. Or elevators are paid by the kilometer today. So there's so many innovative ways of thinking. And it's us. It's not the product. It's us as leaders who decide whether to create a product with waste or without it. And we really want to inspire you for these positive models and possibilities that we have here today.
And Philips is nice. Philips is doing some really interesting things in the B2B space, but also to consumers. So they have a target to have 25% of their revenue come from circular business models. They're getting pretty close to that. And they do lots of remanufactured products. And on Black Friday last year, on the front of their website, they tried to shift the norm, and they only sold their refurbished products until they ran out. And so rather than customers coming to the website and seeing the two options, they just put that front and center. And I think it's that, creating a norm and creating a desire. Quite often when we see really well-intentioned circular pilots of products or services that are being put out in the world to test the appetite from the market, we often see that huge amounts of the complexity of the system is sort of trying to be explained and educated to the consumer, that there's, we're taking it back and this is what we're doing with it. And sometimes for some products where there's real provenance and a story, that is absolutely the right strategy. But if we look actually at our linear economy, what it does amazingly well is it hides all the complexity, all the waste, all the nasty stuff we don't want to see, and it creates a really compelling proposition at the moment of purchase. And we've done that really well in a linear system, which has humongous consequences for society and our planet. But we could also equally redeploy all that energy and creativity to make repair and resale and refurbished products just as sexy and desirable and as coveted.
Yeah, making products sexy. This is what it's all about. I worked for Hermès, and 2012 we launched a new line called Petit Tache, because we had so many scraps and leftovers in our warehouses. So we named our warehouses Alibaba's Cave, because it's a resource. We invited designers to take all these leftovers to make desirable objects out of them. And this is how circularity works. Make them desirable. Speak about them in a positive way. It's about design, it's about storytelling, it's desirability, and then convenience. As you mentioned already, Vinted. Vinted being the biggest fashion retailer in France. This is not because they always put sustainable, sustainable, sustainable. No, it's convenient, it's easy, It's fast, it's fun as well, and you feel good because you really have the feeling, okay, there's a pre-loved thing, I buy a pre-loved thing, or I give a pre-loved thing into the circle. So all these positive emotions are really, really important.
I guess there's a narrative around these things, how we position these things. There is also the nuts and bolts infrastructure that enables a one-way flow of materials. And actually, many of the brands and businesses that we work with, they have big aspirations of the sorts of models they want to put in front of consumers, but they just lack the infrastructure that we needed to collect or sort or maintain those items and get them back into circulation. And again, here in our linear economy, we built the infrastructure far before there was the demand to do so. And to do the same for the circular economy, again, we have to be really, really tactical. So we looked at how you create a returnable packaging system in Europe from some of our work, and really to make the economics work for that kind of system compared to a single-use system. I know in Germany you have this for mineral water and many other things. But to launch that in other markets, you really need to have standardized packaging for many applications, and you need shared sorting, cleaning, and washing centers. And until you have that collaboration to enable all those back-end systems to work together seamlessly, we just won't compete with the price of single-use, which has externalized so much of the cost.
So how can we increase or improve this collaboration you were saying? Because I often go also to Circular Republic here in Munich, and they help in this collaboration. What are your best points to really make society, because we have to take society with us as well, society, companies, and politics together. How do you want to propel this with your foundation?
Always got to start with a common vision. We have companies with governments with different aspirations, different motivations. So you've got to align the incentives around a common vision. What are we trying to achieve? When it comes to taking collaboration to the next level with groups of companies, getting the governance is really important. Of course, there's vital laws that protect consumers from the wrong sorts of collaboration. And ultimately, business has a voice in shaping the wider conditions that our economy operates in. And the linear economy, when it was, as it's developed over the last century, the market conditions didn't happen by accident. It was industries who coordinated to create the tax breaks, the incentives, the infrastructure that enabled them to thrive. And they were really coordinated. And so for the companies, and even in today's economy, the companies who can't yet see their role in the circular economy, and I think there is a role for everyone, they're still working to make sure our current economy stays as it is. So for those who do see a vision of a circular economy and their role for business in it, and they understand the costs of an action, they've also got to be really coordinated. And if we can collaborate to show bigger demonstrations of where it really works at scale, that will give the confidence to policymakers to make the changes needed to enable those models to thrive.
And we ask all leaders in the room, think about your products. How would you design them if they came back to you today?